I wanted to do a book review, and the book is called Die with Zero by Bill Perkins. And this book had been recommended to me by people who are subscribers of this channel, but also have been recommended several times by clients and other financial professionals. So I took the plunge and purchased the book on Amazon and decided to read it. First, Bill Perkins, he's not a financial advisor. The author of this book is actually an engineer, and he an engineering approach to financial planning. And I have a lot of engineers in my book of business, and engineers tend to be very successful with their money because they do take a slightly different approach than many people take to their finances. And I think it's a good book. I've finished probably about half of it. It's raised a lot of wonderful points. It tracks with my experience as a financial advisor. So I want to share the information in the book with you and get your feedback as a viewer. So first, some people, actually many people in retirement, they actually end up dying with more money than they start off in their retirement. Now, I know that this may seem counterintuitive. Many Americans are just trying to do whatever they can for retirement. Many people don't have hundreds of thousands, let alone millions saved for retirement. But there is a subset, and it is a significant subset of the American population that really has too much money as they retire. And I can see it as a financial advisor. Oftentimes it takes some coaching and working with the client for them to understand it. But it presents a problem. It presents a really big problem, especially if the person doesn't have any children or any charities to leave it to. I can see at the point of retirement that this person is going to leave this earth with significantly more money than when they went into retirement. And it's happening more and more, honestly. Even though we're in a retirement crisis, there's a lot of people who will not have enough money for retirement. There is a different subset of the American population that will have too much money for retirement. And it's because people are saving for retirement earlier and earlier. I get people who started saving for retirement at 18 who are now 38 with a several $1 million balance in their 401k and IRA, and we're trying to figure out what to do because they've inadvertently created a big taxation issue for themselves in retirement, and the government is likely going to end up with about 40% of their portfolio. I get parents who, as soon as baby is born, and I have clients who have children who model or do acting work or something, they set up a Roth IRA account to start that kid saving for retirement. So technically, this person has been saving for retirement since the age of 5, and they're now 25, and there's a pretty significant balance building up, and we have to figure out what to do. People who get in this position are typically super savers. They're people who will save no matter what you tell them, and they just feel secure in saving. And so the concept of not saving or spending that money down is really alien to them and is really hard for them to digest. But you have to take an objective look at your finances and say, is there a pretty good chance that I'm going to die with more money than I start off in retirement? If so, maybe I need to change up things now. And the point that this book makes is basically time is more valuable than money at certain points in your life. And while you're socking away building up your wealth, you may be building up your wealth beyond a point that is actually useful to you in this lifetime. And it would be more beneficial for you to take that time and to do things that you love and that will increase your memory bank of wonderful experiences. For example, let's say someone is saving away for retirement in their 40s and 50s. That's prime time, right? You're a good health enough to be able to enjoy travel, but you're not, you have money to travel because, like, maybe when you're 20, you have the fitness, but you don't have any money. But instead of traveling and doing things that you want to do, you continue to work and you're building up a multi-million-dollar balance. By the time you're in your 70s, you're ready to enjoy, but at that point, your health may not be that great. So a lot of the physically active trips that you wanted to do when you were younger are just no longer available to you. So this book really makes a good point of taking the look at time and taking a look at money and finding the optimal point in your life where you can do things and really taking advantage of that. Another caveat that the book makes, and that's very true, this is a book for people with money. Die with zero takes on a different meaning when you really don't have anything or you really don't have enough. But die with zero for people who already have a significant amount of money, significant amount of savings, or have put a tremendous amount of work into their financial planning has a slightly different meaning. This is a message for people who have significant assets, for people who are really facing dying with zero. It just doesn't hit the same way. But it is correct. It does track with what I see. I deal with the subset of people. Probably 70% of my clients are at significant risk of dying with more money than they put in. But it's a subset. It's a group of people who have hired a financial advisor. They've worked with me for many years, so I've made sure their finances stay on point. They were natural savers, natural investors. So they've been going at this for decades, and they've just reached a life where it's pretty obvious that if they continue on the trajectory they're currently on, they will die with more money than at retirement. So, another point that this book makes that really tracks with my work as a financial advisor with kids, with inheritance. Something that I have noticed as a financial advisor is that Americans, and I'm just gonna make it about Americans for a moment, but Americans are receiving inheritances later and later in life. The average age of inheritance is late 50s, early 60s now, whereas 2, 3 generations ago, there was a pretty good chance that you could receive an inheritance in your 20s or even your 30s. The problem with a later life inheritance is many people really don't need the money in their 50s and 60s the way they needed the money in their 20s and 30s. And so I have a lot of clients who inherit money and it ends up sitting in a savings account or it ends up sitting in an investment account. And the money really doesn't circulate in our economy. It just sits there for another 30 years until it goes on to the next generation who by that time is in their 50s or 60s to sit in a savings account or investment account again. It really robs the American economy of circulating capital for people to receive inheritances so late in life. And I identified this problem a long time ago that people were receiving inheritances too late. A point that the book makes is that you really should be giving your kids inheritance while you are alive. And I do work with my clients on this. If I identify a person or persons, a couple that will clearly die with more money than they have, we talk about what legacy they want to leave to their children and if it's appropriate and how can we push that forward. And clients are often very receptive to the idea. They had never really encountered the concept before. They thought when you die, you pass on to the next generation. And I said, look, you're probably going to die in your 90s. Your kids by that time will be in their 50s or 60s and not need the money. But I know your kids are really struggling right now. What can we do right now that can help them, help alleviate their struggling, and possibly help your grandkids out at the same time? And they're like, oh, yeah, let's talk about that. The IRS does allow for a gift exclusion. So we do gift a lot of money to the next generation. And I believe the gift exclusion for 2025 is something like $17,000. That can make a huge difference. Someone in their 20s or someone in their 30s, right? If you're raising kids and you're struggling and you get an extra $17,000 gift from your parents, or sometimes if it's a husband and wife team, the wife can gift 17,000, the husband can gift 17,000. And then you have $34,000 of extra money that can help a kid during those difficult grind years when you're trying to save for a house, put your kids through nursery school, pay the bills, take care of everything. It's really taxing on most American families. So the book Die with Zero really challenges the way people conceptualize inheritance and says you really need to push that concept forward and basically help your kids out when they need it. Don't wait until you die and your kids are in their 50s or 60s to give them this money because it's of less use, or by that time, it's really of no use. And yes, that absolutely tracks with my experience as a financial advisor and is part of what I believe. It also encourages you to take a look at the next decades of your life and basically write out the experiences you want to have. And I've certainly mentally have done this in my own life as well because there's certain experiences I want that require a very high level of fitness. An excellent example, I did Patagonia. I hiked Patagonia earlier this year. Wonderful experience, once in a lifetime trip. It is very physically demanding to do Patagonia. we covered, I think, 42 miles in 4 days on pretty technical trails. And my friend and I did it. We were the youngest. We were the youngest people there. Of course, there were like 20-year-olds breezing past us on the trail, but part of our group, we were the youngest of our group. And the oldest in our group were actually two 80-year-olds who kept up with the group pretty well, but they had pretty phenomenal health for 80 years old. I don't think I would be doing that at 80 years old or want to do Patagonia at 80 years old. But that's a good example of a trip that needed to be timed just right because it was expensive, but it was so physically demanding that if I had done it 15, 20 years later, I would not have had the same experience versus being able to physically do it now. There are several other trips I have coming up that are physically demanding that require a certain level of fitness that can only be done at a certain age. Die with Zero tracks with my own personal experience, but also tracks with the experience of my clients. And I really encourage you to think about exactly what you want your experiences to be in your life over the next few decades and to really take that into consideration in terms of financial planning and planning out your retirement. I'm probably going to do a part two of this book as I review the second part of this book. But I really do recommend if you have resources, you read Die with Zero. Because once again, it's a book for people with resources. If you don't have resources, Die with Zero takes on a frightening connotation, and we want to avoid that at all costs. So there you have it. Tell me what you like, tell me what you don't like. And if you found this information useful, please share and subscribe.